Greenland. Is it for sale? Maybe, maybe not. Recently, President Trump investigated potentially purchasing the land from the Kingdom of Denmark. However, the Danes and the Greenlanders themselves seemed unenthused by the idea. The Prime Minister of Denmark herself referred to it as absurd because, quote, Greenland is not Danish, Greenland is Greenlandic, suggesting that Denmark does not have the moral right to sell the autonomous territory, even if they technically do own it. Morality aside, there is also just cause for both parties to want to maintain their current arrangement, as the massive island is now turned to for its as of yet untapped natural resources, as well as its strategic use in the Arctic Oceans for both trade and defense. Greenland in turn sees hefty subsidization and general trade benefits in its current relationship with Denmark, Danish trade contributing to over 60% of its imports and exports, additionally receiving an annual grant of $650 million from Denmark, a grant which makes up over 25% of the island's GDP. This alone has been a major factor in Greenland withholding from declaring total independence, as such a situation would no doubt cause the standard of living in an already very harsh climate to plummet and potentially lead to a national catastrophe. With a population of some only 60,000, Greenland also relies upon Denmark for military security, painting a picture of a land which, while currently self-governing, is unprepared to survive alone. Denmark also benefits from this special relationship, as while Greenland's primary resources are in fish and sea-based products making up a whopping 90+% of their exports, off the coast and below the sheets of ice is what is believed to be a bounty of oil, gold, rare earth elements, and radioactive material, similar to what was uncovered in Alaska. Denmark, however, has not been grossly successful in retrieving these resources on account of expenses and limited materials, and neither have the Greenlanders for that matter, whose small population is most heavily preoccupied with just ensuring the territory is running properly. Government services and administration sector jobs making up more than half of the entire workforce, while industry and agriculture contribute to the remaining 33%. The European powers have attempted to support Denmark in retrieving these resources, however poor organization has left the project just gradually creeping by and perhaps more concerningly in the hands of other foreign powers interested in the region for its potential value, including Russia and even China, who has been the prime financer and organizer of the most advanced excavation projects on the island. Given all of this information, Denmark and Greenland have a good working relationship, one which isn't great nor speedy, but gradually will get where it needs to go, and for the time is comfortable. However, other powers are interested in exploiting the value of the island, powers be they economic or militant which Denmark alone may not be able to fend off. The US takes special interest in the region as historically it has sought to purchase the land during both the Cold War and the Arctic American Project. Granted that Greenland is also part of North America, it's understandable that foreign influence on the island evokes memories and desires to enforce the Monroe Doctrine. If an unlikely resource conflict were to emerge over Greenland, the US would need to involve itself for the sake of protecting North America and reasserting its dominance in the region. So now the question of what if the US bought Greenland, and should the US buy Greenland? Just as a matter of personal opinion, I do like the idea and see some clear gain to be derived from the purchase. However, there's a significant cultural and political distinction that would make it unsuitable for statehood, at least initially. The majority of the population being of Inuit descent, and in most part favoring social and even socialist parties, not even mentioning the large linguistic distinction between the two. However, with so small a population, the land would be very easy to settle and integrate into the larger American culture. If it were up to me, I'd much rather see the US purchase the sparsely populated western provinces of Canada, which are more compatible and fulfill a similar function. Realistically, I believe that at some point Greenland would simply be driven to seek independence, as that appears to be the current course the nation is following, and in such a case it would most likely fall under the influence of another power, as it's not rightly capable of fending for itself. In that situation, the US is probably the best and most capable power in the region to take it under its wing. But now, let's just get into the scenario. What if the US purchased Greenland? Let's suppose that in an alternate timeline, Greenlanders, fearful of the increased attention being put upon them, paired with a realization that Denmark alone can ensure their security, puts to a vote a call for independence so that they may join the United States as an autonomous territory, perhaps going it alone for a few years just to see if they could, pretty similar to what we saw with Texas. However, overall, Greenland is really just trading Denmark out for the US in this situation. While the current relationship between the two is functional, a union with the United States could provide much more, while potentially retaining much the same trade it had with Denmark as it had prior. The region would certainly attract more businesses, and with so much land unoccupied, may lead to a revival of homesteading law to encourage Americans to develop the wild tundras of the territory into more habitable zones. The boom in population would of course lead to more business, and thus create more jobs and demand for diverse products. Optimally, we may even see the US government take more of a proactive approach to developing new technologies to endure these conditions, and of course mine out those treasures which lie right beneath the ice. Those treasures perhaps contributing themselves to new technologies and discoveries, as we're likely to uncover more than just mineral resources under that ice. If we're also to believe climate change projections, then we could see a significant receding of the central ice cap by the year 2300, at which point much of the island's land will be easily accessible. A warming of the climate would also create a great opportunity for sea routes across the Arctic, resulting in a greater development of the northern Greenlandic ports. Strategically, in terms of military, Greenland as it is in our world already houses a number of US military bases and serves as an essential node in intercepting intercontinental missiles. If in the future tensions were to develop between the US, Europe, Russia, or China, well-established and developed bases along the Greenlandic coast could serve as a crucial deterrent and defense against both invasion and missile strikes, being located at an ideal midpoint to properly alert of and act against incoming threats before they reach the US mainland. If properly equipped, Greenland could serve as a shield against basically every major outside threat to North America. Now domestically, we'd see the regional cultures blend with that of the overall American culture of the new settlers. A population of 60,000 would make the settlement of Greenland most similar to the settling of Spanish Florida, or perhaps more closely French Louisiana, considering the sheer size of the landmass, with Amero-Greenlandic culture being concentrated in the currently most populated regions of Greenland, while a more generally American identity dominates previously low-populated areas. An increase in both population and business contributes to both greater leisures and forms of entertainment on the island, helping to reduce the nation's infamously high suicide rate. Strangely enough, this rise in suicides having coincided with the gradual abandonment of Danish influence for a more cleanly Inuit culture. However, this may have simply been a coincidence. If not, then it could suggest that stronger Danish rule and influence helped to bring a level of security that these days might feel absent. However, that's all speculation. A good parallel to draw for the Greenland of our world and this world might be the difference between Russian Alaska and American Alaska. Whereas the Russian settlers were few and far between and were unable to venture deeply into the frozen forest of territory, American settlers, motivated by the prospect of free land and untapped resources, set out to build and hold on to something long enough to attract businesses and advancements which made life in the region easier. Not easy, but easier. We may just see such a thing repeat with Greenland, who in the continental states would probably be perceived much the same as Hawaii and Alaska. And I now say state because while Greenland would have certainly began as an American territory, the gradual flow of Americans to the region, soon outnumbering the native Greenlanders, would inevitably make the region compatible enough with the rest of the US to make it an American state. Sorry, PR. So in review, should the US buy Greenland? In the long term, it would be a hypothetical ideal for both parties. The US gets resources and more land, Greenland gets security and development. Really, I'd make the same argument for Denmark to retain Greenland, but as it stands, they're very limited in what they can do, and the current situation seems to be that Greenland will eventually go its own way once it feels capable. This will, however, slow it down even further unless by some chance it's able to harness the value of its resources, which alone seems unlikely. I'd like to see Greenland stand on its own 2 feet, kinda like Canada has, but I also know that with the US behind it, it'd be able to go much further, much quicker than it could alone. And that is where I'll end this video for now. The US of Z thanks you for watching. Support your legion by liking the video, or join our ranks by subscribing for more. Mr. Z, out.